Welcome back to the Bryan Devore Connection. I'm your host, Bryan Devore. It is critical to have all of your estate planning needs taken care of well before you think you may even need them. So here to talk to us today about the services he provides for his clients and why he's a little different than some other estate planning attorneys out there is Zack Whitman. Zack, thanks for coming today.
Thanks, Brian.
So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into the world of estate planning.
Yeah, well, so I originally come from corporate law. So I started as a mergers acquisitions attorney up in Silicon Valley. That's where I started doing a lot of venture financing, tech startups, the C-suite. So the same fiduciary duties that we now see in estate planning is really where my background comes from. So once my wife and I moved to San Diego, I pivoted to get into estate planning. That was 2019. And so from then I've developed into the broader scope, which includes litigation, estate planning, probate, kind of the full gambit of services.
Got it. Now, not a lot of estate planning attorneys do all of that.
No.
A lot of them focus on just the planning. Some of them just focus on litigation, but you do both.
We do both, yeah. So I have the transactional backgrounds where I started from and kind of developed into litigation within the last 5 years or so. And I think it makes us better planners to know the litigation elements, and it makes us better litigators to know the estate planning transactional side. So you know the pitfalls on both sides of the coin, which makes us better at both.
Yeah, I can see that. I've worked with clients who have done proper estate planning and their documents are in order. That's great. And I've done probates where that's the opposite situation, where they really haven't done their planning. And it can be really messy. But I like the fact that you do the litigation so you know the ugly stuff that can come out.
Yeah.
When you're working and coaching with your clients who are doing their planning. You can say, okay, you don't want this.
Right.
Let's make sure your documents are all correct.
Yeah, and it's broader than just the documents being correct. The main point of estate planning is to guide your clients into decision making, right? How are we structuring the plan versus just what's on paper, right? And so helping them avoid the pitfalls, bad trustee selection, bad decisions on distributions that's going to cause eventual litigation. Our plans are really designed for both probate avoidance and litigation avoidance. And so that's more of how we approach the planning process, is guiding these clients into proper decisions, well thoroughly thought out decisions to avoid the litigation side.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And you work with your wife, which is
do.
great. And that's kind of bleeds into your plans. What makes you different a little bit is you're very family focused.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, so we actually just launched our new law firm. So Elysium Law is our new firm. The two of us opened together. I've been with firms for the last all my career, and my wife has been a solo attorney doing estate planning. The time was kind of right for us to join forces, and that's what we did. So we opened Elysium Law together in September of 2024, and you're right, family focused, right? So we like to work together. We complement each other. So she does primarily the estate planning, and I do the litigation. But clients get to interact with both of us. And so we bring that family collaboration to our plans, to our clients, and then just how we generally practice law.
Do you see a benefit of sort of being that small yet nimble sort of law firm where you don't have a ton of attorneys where people are passed off to? They're just working with you.
Yeah, if they have questions, they get to go straight to the top, right? And that's been a problem at a lot of firms, really, that if you get stuck in the wheel of larger practices, you're working with partners or associates or paralegals, it's just us. And so we have a lot of client interaction, direct contact with our client, because there's nobody else to pass the work off to, right? So I get to be a lot more involved on the ground floor with my clients, more communication with them, more rapport, which ultimately bolsters the relationship, but as a litigator, it makes me understand the cases so much more to a fundamental level, which then makes it easier to litigate the case.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, with COVID, we all learned to work more virtually, with Zoom and everything else. And that's your primary method of working with clients is virtual. Talk about that and how that helps you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a virtual world now, right? Courts are virtual. Our clients are busy people, and it's always been difficult to find the time for them to leave the office, travel to an office, meet with your attorney in person. So we've tried to simplify that, and we stay fully virtual. The whole planning process, from consultation, planning, drafts, all virtual over Zoom. You do have to meet in person for the final signing appointment, and we typically travel to the client's house or wherever is most convenient for them to be able to sign and execute the documents to fit within their daily schedule. So it works very well with seniors, older population that traveling is maybe more difficult or they're reliant on friends or family. Well, we're going to come to you and make it as easy as possible so we can get these documents done, get your plan in place, and then we can move on with our lives.
That's fantastic. And again, that gets back to the family focused. I mean, you're very hands-on, personal service and attention. And when we were talking about this interview, and what we want to touch on, one of the things that you said is, well, we're going to be here. I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? So what do you mean by that?
Well, I think the legal profession has a very older population, right? The attorneys, you go into a law firm, you expect somebody in their 60s, established attorneys. From a estate planning perspective, in my opinion, that's maybe not the best option, because when you go to administer the trust or the estate after somebody has passed away, if you are the drafting attorney, you're so much more familiar with the document, you're familiar with the family. My wife and I are earlier in our careers. We're going to be here when these trusts are being administered. If we draft a trust today and they pass away in 20 years, I'm still going to be here, still going to be practicing. So the clients' families can come right back to us. We have our notes, we have our understanding of why the plan was done the way it was done, so that we can be easier on the administration. And so we're here for the long haul. And I think that is a good thing, especially for planning.
Well, and I've seen that situation come to light when a lot of my clients who have done their estate planning and they don't have a copy of their trust, and they go back to their attorney, the attorney's out of business, and they can't get it, and it becomes a problem. But you guys are going to be here for the long haul.
Yeah, we are, and that happens far too often. You get your binder, you get your document, you move, some accident, flood, or something happens in your house, and your documents are destroyed, or you lose them. It happens. You need to be able to go to your attorney and get your copy of your document or re-execute documents that have gone missing. That happens far too often. And so we end up recreating trusts. We do amendments, full restatements of trusts when we can't find the original documents, which ultimately costs the clients more in the long haul because we're effectively starting over. Yeah. And so that's unfortunate. And when you go to do an amendment, right, these documents are supposed to grow and develop with you over life. An estate plan, from my perspective, how I plan, we're planning for today, right? We have to plan as if you're going to die leaving my office, what are we going to do with your assets? As life changes, as family passes, new kids come into the picture, relationships sever, we're going to need to update these documents. And it's easier to amend a trust you drafted than try to amend somebody else's document. And a lot of attorneys won't amend another attorney's drafts. You just scrap the plan and start over. And then the client's paying for multiple iterations of an estate plan, versus if they come back to the drafting attorney and do an amendment, that's a very simple, cheap process compared to starting fresh.
Yeah. Lots of good benefits by working with this man right here. So on screen is Zack's information, phone number, and website. You can learn more about he and his wife and Elysium Law and how they work and how you can get in touch with them to get your estate planning started. Zack, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Bryan.